There is no precedent for the direction we are headed because it's possible that the Democrats will win control of the Congress before the midterm elections sometime next year. That's never happened in the House, but it has occurred in the Senate and in state legislatures. My mentor was Forrest J. Girard, a Blackfeet citizen from Montana. He was the professional staff member for the Senate for the Interior Committee Chairman Henry Jackson, and he was the principal author of the Indian Self-Determination and Education Assistance Act, the Indian Finance Act, and the Indian Healthcare Improvement Act. It's quite a run. So much so that the Nixon administration took notice and reached out to Girard, a Democrat, for a possible appointment at a federal agency. Girard went in to see his boss. Henry Jackson was blunt. "I wouldn't do it," he said. "There's a lot of bad things brewing. You'd be better off waiting for the next administration." That's exactly what happened. I was thinking about this story in the context of Washington today. It's still less than a year since the inauguration of Donald J. Trump as president, but a lot of bad things are brewing. This is Breaking History. I'm Mark Trahant. And before I go on, be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'm always happy to read comments. And if this is interesting, share that content. One important signal is coming from congressional Republicans. They are giving up power. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, an avid Trump and MAGA supporter, grabbed a lot of attention when she announced that she would be leaving Congress on January 5th. She is exiting with a year left in her term, which is unusual. But she's not the only one headed for the exits. Members of the House are quitting at a record pace, 26 Republican members and 18 Democrats. And that's only so far. History says the party that has the most retirements is usually the one that will not be in the majority next session. This is a serious problem for the House Republican Conference. Speaker Mike Johnson is managing a hairline majority, 219 Republicans compared to the 213 Democrats. But the Speaker's hold on his majority is even less than the numbers suggest. There are several special elections ahead. One a couple of weeks ago in Tennessee, 2 more in Texas, and 1 in New Jersey. When MTG's resignation is effective, that too will require a special election. The Republican majority is so slim that Speaker Johnson basically kept members out of Washington so that they would not or could not act independently. It didn't work. A discharge petition, a rule that avoids the mechanics of the majority, was easily passed to release the files surrounding pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. One telling quote about the situation from the New York Times this week: "The rifts have opened as Republicans preparing to face voters in next year's elections are increasingly worried that they have squandered a year in which their party had total control of government." The House, the Senate, the White House, and effectively the Supreme Court. The Republicans hold all the cards, yet it's been one of the least productive Congresses in history. All the power emits from the Trump White House. However, there is a growing call from House committees to rein in actions by the Trump administration. The most significant challenge comes last week from the House Armed Services Committee demanding oversight over military operations in the Caribbean. The committee statement even made a point to say Department of Defense, not the Department of War, as it's called in Trump world. The committee is probing the legality of the Navy's actions, including killing of survivors after a military action, a possible war crime. Then, to my way of thinking, blowing up a boat without producing evidence meets that test too. Of course, none of this makes governing the House any easier. There's really no precedent for the direction we are headed because it's possible that Democrats will win control of the House before the midterms, sometime in the next year. The House has never changed leadership in the middle of a session, but the Senate has. Most recently in 2001, when Vermont's Jim Jeffords left the Republican Party and became an independent.
Increasingly, I find myself in disagreement with my party. I understand that many people are more conservative than I am, and they form the Republican Party. Given the changing nature of the National Party, it has become a struggle for our leaders to deal with me and for me to deal with them. Indeed, the party's electoral success has underscored the dilemma that I face within the party. In the past, without the presidency, the various wings of the Republican Party in Congress have had some freedom to argue and influence and ultimately to shape the party's agenda. The election of President Bush changed that dramatically.
He then voted with Democrats to form a majority in that chamber. It's a big deal. Every committee chair changed, and the very agenda of the Senate switched directions. There's also a record of state legislatures switching parties mainstream. This has happened in Michigan, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and Alaska. Alaska was particularly interesting because it wasn't straight party politics. A few Republicans joined with Democrats to create a working majority. That led to the 2017 election of an Alaska native, Bryce Edgman, as Speaker of the House. He is Central Yupik. Over the past year, we have seen the House cede power to the Trump administration. This is not the way it usually works in Congress. When I covered the Reagan administration, there used to be budgets presented to Congress that would say reduce programs for American Indians and Alaska Natives by huge numbers. I remember one that was roughly a third. None of those budgets became law. Congress went about its business and wrote its own budgets, and the programs continued. The Trump administration has had success getting around Congress and getting them to agree to the spending plan, particularly in the big, beautiful bill. Among other things, a rescission plan that cut funding for public broadcasting. But even that's not enough. The Trump administration also refuses to spend money that's been legally appropriated. One developing fight coming is over the cost of Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. The program is funded until next fall, but the Agriculture Department has called SNAP corrupt and ridden with fraud. Secretary Brooke Rollins posted on X, in the states that shared their data, there were well over 500,000 cases of fraud, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Why are other states suing us for asking for the data? What are they hiding? It gets worse. At a cabinet meeting last week, the Secretary of Agriculture celebrated the administration's budget-cutting agenda.
As Joe Biden was working to buy an election a year ago, he increased food stamp program funding by 40%. So now as we continue to roll that back. So the partnership in Making America Healthy Again is also in food stamps, but a lot of what Bobby and I are doing together is really remarkable. But again, just gratitude and joy.
This is outrageous and nonsense. We saw during the government shutdown just how important SNAP benefits are to families. But it's also an important issue about governance. Republicans in Congress will have to choose between the people they serve, we demand services, and the Trump administration's relentless drive to cut federal spending. To put it more simply, does a member lose the election next year or walk away now? I'm betting more will retire. And as they leave town, that could flip the Congress to one run by a Speaker, Hakeem Jeffries. There is a lot brewing.